I'd like to call to order the Winthrop Town Council meeting for February 6, 2024. We are in the Harvey hearing room. Denise, roll call, please.
Council Fusillo. Council Munson.
Here.
Council Swope. Here. Council Aiello.
Yeah.
Council DeRoss.
Here.
Councilor DeMarco.
Here.
Council Tassinari.
Here.
Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge, and please stay standing after the pledge, led by Councilor Tassinari.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for 1 second, please. I'd like to have a moment of silence for Mrs. Margaret Dimes, wife of the late Richard Dick Dimes, along with her husband of over 73 years, who served in Winthrop politics as a member of the planning board and several terms as selectman. Margaret was a lover of Winthrop and politically involved with various town organizations such as the Winthrop Beautification Committee, Winthrop Historical Society, Dollars for Scholars, and a town meeting member for many, many years. She also enjoyed baking and contributing to many fundraisers for the town of Winthrop and the Winthrop School Department. She would be sorely missed. Please take a moment. Thank you. Minutes from the January 16th, 2024 meeting have been circulated. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Swope. Any discussions, omissions, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. General information and recommendations, there are none. Public hearing, we do not have one. Public comment, there will be 2 public comment periods today. The first one is now open. Yes, Mr. Perrin.
I'd like to be heard on Mass General Law 48, Section 3A.
Sure. Brian Perrin, Precinct 3.
Oh, sorry, Brian Parent, Precinct 3. I've got pages and pages of the negative effects that this will have on the town of Winthrop. I'm gonna limit that because I think you've heard enough of that and probably received a lot of correspondence on that. But I just want to start by saying that under Chapter 40B, developers have the same have had no interest in building affordable or multifamily housing in our town, even though they currently have the ability to bypass many of the same zoning laws under Section 3A. So you can't blame the town of Winthrop zoning laws for restricting or preventing additional housing units because there is an ability to do that, which I think is part of what this law is intended to do. We need to recognize this law as a historic overreach by the state of Massachusetts and over our local control and home rule. One size does not fit all. I know you've all heard that over and over. Local zoning is in place to protect our citizens and their property interests. And this law is doing the exact opposite of that. 3A is ripe for legal challenges. I think most of you probably have seen a memo of attorney Alexander Whiteside. He's since passed away. He was the former attorney and chief counsel to the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. And he raises some serious challenges to the legality and the enforceability of the guidelines versus regulations. This is their former attorney, their chief legal counsel. So this is very significant and compelling that this law is ripe to be challenged. I also found a lawsuit that was filed by the people of some people of Rockport, suing the town of Rockport, as well as Mass Housing and Community Development and others. They're challenging the constitutionality of 3A, and it raises valid questions about the state's overreach as to home rule and town's rights to maintain control over its zoning and decision as to laws. This has been filed in the Essex County Superior Court. It's being heard up in Lawrence. I've got a copy of that to give you so you can take a look at it. I think it's important that you really kind of look at this and challenge this, because if you don't, by not opposing this law and joining forces with other communities that are negatively affected, you're surrendering your rights to govern your own town to the state of Massachusetts. And that's just a very slippery slope. We've had over 100 years of zoning. I'm sorry if I sound angry, because this is really an overreach by the state. So if we allow this to happen, This is a slippery slope. You're gonna see they're gonna take away your right to govern your own town, to decide your own destiny. This is a huge, huge issue. It's not just the building of buildings, it's what power next are they gonna take away from you as a governing body? We elected you to be our representatives. You're in a horrible position because you have a law that says you have to do it. But let me tell you, I think you should oppose it, I think you should ask for an extension, and I think you need to join forces with other communities that are negatively affected. This one-size-fits-all doesn't work in the town of Winthrop. It doesn't work in a lot of communities. And it's not that I'm against affordable housing, but I know developers. There's no portion of this law that even addresses affordable housing, and that really bothers me. So what they're trying to do is wrong, it's one size fits all, and it's an overreach by the state. And I think that case in Rockport, which actually looks at the home rule, the ability to have home rule, and whether this is grandfathered, is the decision that needs to be made by the towns and the cities of the state. So I really think you need to look at that. I think you need to reach out and join hands with these other places that are negatively affected. And that's all I have to say, and I hope you realize that by not opposing this, you're abdicating your roles as elected officials. And I really feel bad that you have to make that decision.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, sir.
I'd like to support the...
Just name and precinct, please, for the record.
Sorry. My name is Steve Machinsky, Precinct 5. Been here for about 40 years. I have a 3-family house. I had a fight. In fact, I know Joe Harvey threw my paper away in the garbage. I said I'll sue the town if I had to because I had a piece of paper that said it was a legal 3-family. I had to go through a lot. One of the things I'm upset about, but I'll also collaborate with the speaker said before, is we have laws already for our zoning. We're a very dense community. And the other thing is that nobody talks about it. But I know I was on that police committee and I asked the policeman, how is this going to affect our police department? It's going to affect it. How is it going to affect our fire department? It's going to affect it. It's going to affect a lot of other things. So I think that you have a duty. You took that responsibility. I gave up after 17 years. But I think you should at least make an effort to fight this and find out if there are other alternatives.
Thank you.
Mark
Yes.
Bennett, Precinct 2. This is directed more at Mr. Larry and Mr. Domenico. In the informal meeting that you were both at a week or so ago, we actually put forward a motion, or we thought that the council should vote on this right now and see where the council stands on it by individual for a yea or a nay on it. We'd like to know where all of you stand on it. So we would like a vote, whether you're for it or against it. And
Thank you.
we would like that vote to take place tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
Kurt Millar, Precinct 2. I've been digging into this even more since the meeting the other night, and it's pretty interesting to see. First thing I'm still concerned on is evacuation of our current town the way it is, without adding any more density to it. I could say right now, if one of those chemical trucks spilled, going down Deer Island, what are we gonna do? As is. We add the density, more people, where's the plan for that? That should be mandated if we're gonna be forced to do this. In the town we're in, we should have a true evacuation plan here. Touching on some of the other things here, digging into some of this zoning reform, I looked up the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, who is very much for this. But what was nice is they actually had some opposing views in there. And Vancouver, Paul Condon, I believe his name is, was one of the planners, really knowledgeable, one of the best out there. The density failed. It actually increased the cost of the land more than anything else. So the density failed there. And it's, you know, you can Google that quickly and you'll see what it's all about. The apartment costs went up due to the land price going up. Look at Los Angeles. Same thing happened in Los Angeles. Used to have low income. Some areas were worse off than others, but it's failing there also. The price of rents and houses are skyrocketing compared to wages. So this is concerning. There is no place that anything like this has been implemented that has actually worked. The one thing they did say was, there's one place in Massachusetts that part of this implemented actually works, and it's Cambridge. But I don't know about you guys, I live in Winthrop, because I don't wanna live in Cambridge and have to deal with that, right? So, if you really look at the background on this, California has implemented almost 200+ laws for this to try to get it to work, and it has failed. And, you know, they're supposed to be the one, you look at California, it goes everywhere else, it's failing. And the people are suffering. People who need affordable living are suffering because of this. So really would like to, you know, the council to really look into this and deeper than what the state is putting out. Because yes, they're putting the positives on it, but not what actually is going on through the whole North America with communities that have this already starting to be implemented. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good. Yes.
And Carol Beach, precinct 1. I'd like to dovetail off of what Kurt said. I also read that study today, and another reason it failed was not just the cost of housing didn't go down. What they found is happening is more and more people are living in the units to be able to afford them. So if you have a 2-bedroom house, you're now having double the amount of people in those houses, which has an impact on health, safety, because now you're over capacity in some of these buildings. I also read later on tonight, and I'll try to find it when I get home and send it. I also read that there is a People versus California to roll back these laws so that the zoning goes back to the local level. So I think we should also look and see what places around the country that have implemented this and are starting to roll back because of the failure. Because it's not just the density, it's not just the cost, it's the health and safety of how many people are living in each unit.
Thank you, Carol. Jack, yes.
Jack Dempsey, Precinct 3. Want to agree with the previous speakers. The increase of people is going to affect everything on us, from traveling in and out of the town, police, fire, teachers, and you think it's just going to add more firefighters, it's going to be the answer. That's not. You're going to have to then buy apparatus, you're going to have to buy equipment. There's ramifications way beyond just hiring personnel. So it's going to cost us a lot more in the long run, and that's going to be a constant cost. The other thing, and I'll keep it short, it's up to you guys. Not Ian Campbell, not Mara Haley, they don't live here. Let them bring it together. Let them put this down in Martha's Vineyard. You know, so that's really all I have to say. We're counting on you guys to make the right choice tonight and oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Sue.
Hi, I wrote a letter. I'm Susan Griffiths, Precinct 5. You know, along the lines of what people are saying, I kind of outlined everything that I felt in my letter, but one thing I wanted to point out is when we add this sort of density, we're on a bus line. We are not on a train line. People are going to have cars. You have children that have to get to sports. You have people that have to get elder care to doctor's appointments. We are on a bus line. You do not give up your vehicle. And it's unrealistic to say that you're gonna have a 2-bedroom apartment that they may put 4 people in, that they're gonna have 1 car. So we're talking 2 to 3 cars per unit, just say 2 cars per unit. In this area, we have both egresses on the same side of town. The light in Revere at Beachmont is controlled by Revere. The light in East Boston at the Heights is controlled by the city of Boston. When those 2 lights are red, and we just added 2,000 cars to our town, if anybody's driven out during rush hour, we're in trouble as it is now, the way we live. But to agree to add 2,000 cars because the MBTA is having a hard time is ludicrous, let alone everything else everybody else said, police, fire. It's been pointed out that the schools are already overcrowded. You can't be handing out birth control and bikes to people and say the only way you can move in is if you agree to ride a bike and not have children. Like, that's the reality. They're gonna have kids and they're gonna have bikes. I mean, they're gonna have cars, so, you know, there's things beyond the control of the town of Winthrop, is what I'm saying. We can't control those lights. We're on a peninsula, we're in a unique situation. We are trapped here in an emergency or just to get to a doctor's appointment. So, that was my speaking.
Thank you, sir. Anything on, yeah, Paul?
Talk. Hi, Paul Caruccio, Precinct 2. I want to say first off and foremost that I oppose this, and with the Republican Town Committee unanimously took a vote and opposed this bill. And I also want to say that this is not a left or right or a political decision at all. This is a decision that spans, that it rises above it all. In fact, I was speaking to a representative who's on the other side of the aisle from me, and he agrees with me. So the people of Winthrop, I think, overwhelmingly oppose this. Obviously, in a cramped community like Winthrop, when you add 880 new units at a minimum, you're going to have a problem with a safety hazard, and you're gonna have a problem with potentially a crime problem. I wanna know if anybody's figured that in. So if you add 880 new units and you have family units, how many children is that? Has anybody estimated the cost it's going to cost us per year to educate these additional children? Has anybody tried to estimate how many children that is, or how many people that would be? How much does it cost us per student to educate each child? On my own number, I came up with $39 million per year in additional schooling costs. I don't, do we have that? Are we going to get that? This bill also overrides our local zoning laws. I thought our zoning laws were settled law. And I think that the other thing this does that nobody's talking about is this sets a precedent, an onerous precedent forever in any area, to let the state dictate to us what we can and cannot do in our own communities when we have our own zoning laws. It's simply unconscionable that we would allow this. Now, whether or not we want to do something like this on our own, we can amend and we can deal with our own zoning laws. So this is onerous. I also wonder if, in fact, that's a constitutional issue, if they're able to do that. Has anybody estimated the benefit that the town will get from this? Do we receive anything? And are those things a guaranteed payment to the community? Do we know that?
There is nothing for the community.
So there's nothing. So we get nothing, but we will be saddled with a lot of problems, safety, potentially crime, huge education bill, amongst other things. And there's absolutely no return for the community of Winthrop. So all I can say, and I want to repeat what everybody else here has said very eloquently, far more eloquently than I could, that we must oppose this. And I also think it's a great idea that we take a vote of the council now, so we know where our councils, the people who represent us, stand on this very vitally important issue, which I think, which I'm sure needs to go to a town-wide vote, because this impacts every single person in this community. Directly, indirectly, it impacts everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Yes.
Tom Judarian, Precinct 3, Point Shirley, underneath the flight path. Every time the airplanes go over, I think Winthrop should secede from the Union and declare a no-fly zone. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice for us to be totally in control of our town and keep things quiet? But this town was founded in, what, 172 years ago? I mean, I don't remember, I was young then. And there were cows, there were very few people, taxes were maybe non-existent, town services were small. The town grew, more people, more revenue, more services were offered, and this has been happening for the 172 years. If we wish to modify some of these aspects of 3A, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can change the requirements of this town specifically. But when this meeting started, we stood up and we recited the Pledge of Allegiance to the country. We have an allegiance to our state and to the citizens of the rest of the state, to welcome them. And the town will be better off with more people, more resources. We'll have more of an argument to get grants and help to help the town mitigate the effects of sea level rise. I mean, we are a peninsula, and there is a threat from the outside. The water is rising, and we will need the help of the rest of the state. And we don't want them to just say to us, how long can you tread water?
I think
So
they're already
we-
saying that.
Yeah, definitely.
We will need that help, and we're not in a position to nullify the state of Massachusetts any more than Texas is, or South Carolina could nullify before the Civil War. We're part of the state, we're part of the country.
Thank you. Yes.
I think we have an obligation, though, to stand up for our rights. I don't care what the state says, and just having more people in the community and then thinking we can get grants. I've been very familiar with grants and all the strings that are tied to it. It's just like debt exclusions that we pay for 20 years and people force them and then they move out of the town. We should be very careful, and just because we oppose something doesn't mean that we can't take a look at that and see if there's a way to look at against that. You know, and I'm not gonna worry about the rise of the water in Winthrop. We got enough problems as it is and stuff like that. So, and I'm on the Conservation Commission. I see a lot of this stuff. So
Thank you.
that's just a comment.
Yes, Brian.
I just want to, again, note that just because the state says it's so, doesn't make it so, and it doesn't make it constitutional, it doesn't make it right. And the fact that they're trying to strip you of your ability to govern your own town is a very slippery slope again. And I just want to remind you of that you're going to abdicate your responsibility by not voting against this and fighting it all the way.
Thank you. Denise, anything on Zoom?
Nope.
All right, well, one more. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Good evening, folks. My name is James Gallagher. I live at 20 Shirley Street, right at the corner of Revere and Shirley Street, which you have all heard about.
Oh, yeah.
My beginning selling price for my two-family house at 20 Shirley Street will start at $2 million. Now, don't laugh, there's a reason for that. When I leave Winthrop, where am I gonna buy a house? I'm not going to Lynn, I'm not going to Chelsea, I'm not going to Revere, I'm certainly not going to Cambridge. Because like one of other fine people here, Cambridge is a hole. I won't tell you what type, but it's a hole. That if they wanna live like that, more power to them. But they don't have any room to even park the extra cars in Cambridge. We do, except somebody that buys a two-family house, all of a sudden there's lights on in the basement, day and night, and there's an attic that goes with the second floor. But there's also 8 cars for a two-family house. Where are they gonna fit? On the street? Okay, that's it. Lastly, all the people that preceded me spoke with eloquence. I'm proud of you. Please, please, do not, as council members, do not let this council pass this law. Because I, like Paul, am going to advocate extreme strongly with every bone in my 78-year-old body to get out there and vote you out of office if you pass this sucker. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. We will be having a second round of public comment later in the meeting.
Is there still any old business regarding Girdlestone Road flood issues?
I'm sorry?
Girdlestone Road and flood issues, that was on, we spoke of that on, as new business last week.
No, this, we haven't even hit that on the
Oh,
agenda
okay,
yet.
fine.
Thank you. Correspondence. Denise?
Let's see, I got several emails opposing the 3A zoning. Marcy Hamilton has a question about safety at meetings. We have Zoom concern participation from several emailers. Donna Riley wrote a letter about Massport mitigation, and Julie Wallace wrote a letter about a positive 3 information pack.
Thank you. Committee reports, rules and ordinance.
Thank you. Rules and Ordinance met last Thursday. Present was myself and Counselor DeMarco. The only item on the agenda was the short-term rental ordinance, which includes Airbnbs. We still have a little more conversation to have on this. There are a few features of the ordinance that we want to get a little more input on, both from our legal counsel, from the council, and from the public. We'll have another meeting about that in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. And there was one precinct meeting since our last meeting. Councilor DeMarco, I believe, had a precinct meeting. Is there anything you wish to share on that?
Yeah, first off, a lot of the people were at that meeting are here today, so I want to thank you all for coming. It was a very lively discussion, talking about the 3A zoning, the lack of benefits towards the 3A zoning. Everybody was against the 3A zoning at the meeting. We also touched on flood issues as well as the middle school site, some very positive feedback, taking it all under advisement and looking forward to discussing in the future. So thank you all.
Right, the school committee met last evening. We were fortunate enough to have round 2 of the John and Abigail Adams winners due to extracurricular activities. A lot of them can't make it at a specific meeting, so we had round 2 last night where we were fortunate to honor another 8 or 10 children, which is an incredible honor to win the John Abigail, or to win the John Abigail Award. You have to, in MCAS, rank in the advanced category in at least one of the sections, and the proficient category or above in the other, while being in the top 25% of your student body. So it's very fortunate that we had a tremendous amount of students reach that level, so we thank them for their excellence, and we thank our staff for helping them along. Also, the other major topic of conversation was the fiscal 25 budget for the calendar year for the school year starting next September. It is well underway, the process. It will probably take another couple of months before they come to the council with their recommendation for their budget. There's a lot of talk about funding for the schools, and over the past several years they request a needs-based budget, and they end up settling for a level service budget. So there's a lot of talk going on the school budget, but they are going through each school building individually. The principals are responsible for their building. They'll be submitting their budget request to the superintendent, and she will be compiling all that information, getting along with the central office and proposing a budget to us. So I encourage you to stay informed on that. Councilor Swope.
President Lettieri, are they planning to go back on Zoom soon?
I don't know that.
Did you ask?
I will. Town manager, report.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Once there's some of the public comment, Director Cal and I have been working, as we were directed to, with regard to the flooding in Tassau and Girdlestone and Pico areas. We did reach out to MEMA and other organizations about acquiring pumps. I believe we'll be able to have pumps at no cost to us within a couple of weeks, so we'll be okay there. We'll also, you'll see there's a vote later on under new business to move some money around as was requested. We were able to get partial do a phased approach with the engineering work for all three of those neighborhoods, so it'll be a $50,000 request so we can get started on some of the survey work. So thank you to Director Calla for that, reaching out to our engineer and getting that going. With regard to, just to keep going with that, I know that the other area is Morton Street and Banks. We actually had a meeting today with regard to the MVP grant that we have. We had a follow-up with the Woods Hole Group and the others that have been working on that. They've done some survey work out there. I've talked before about living levees and other ways to naturally, protect from the flooding of the marshes and the oceans. That's gonna require some, cooperation with some of the neighbors down at the end of, near Morton and Banks with those houses that back up to the marsh. I think there's 8 of them there. And then others, cause they're gonna have to, if we don't do the living levees, then the other option is to raise the grade of the street. So, there's a couple of different ways to do it. Obviously, the living levees are easier, you don't have to raise the grade of the street, it will protect, raise it up to the required, elevation to stop the, the 100-year storm, and that's what we're sort of designing towards, so. More to follow on that, the next step on that, Morton Street and Banks will be outreach, doing public meetings, we're gonna talk about possibly doing one down there right on the street, maybe a little nicer weather. Talking to the neighbors and, going over the plans and what's being talked about. This will get the engineering work done, and then after that, it'll be talk about, construction costs and, next steps moving forward. One thing I did wanna stress, we have talked a lot about, funding and whatnot, but when we do get to the engineering work, and the other thing I wanted to point out was the grant that we did apply for through the federal government was the WRDA grant. It's the organization, it's the Water Resources Reform and Development Act. That was the agency. We did that through Congresswoman Clark's office, and Wade Blackman's my contact up there. He actually forwarded that up. We got the letter of recommendations from our state senator, state rep, myself and others, and we submitted that whole package up. It's in committee right now, so we'll hope to hear back from them, but that was the $675,000 ask we did to, get the rest of the grant money. And then we will, but I did want to stress that once we get that design work done and we know what it costs, there's a whole, town finances, right? We don't want to just take our reserve funds and drain them to do that. It's a drop in the bucket and it won't cover it. And what that does is that impacts our bonding. And while we're gonna pay for this, is if we don't get grants, would be, have to go out if the council so chose to do a debt exclusion, right? Put it out to the voters and decide if you wanted to vote, if it's a $5, $10, $15 million project, whatever it would be, and that's how you would get the funding for it, if we are unable successful to get construction grants. So that's why we try to get grants first, because we've got a lot going on. We talk about, school budgets and fire stations and other projects that have to go off for debt exclusions and, to the voters. So this would just add that to the list, and certainly it's an important thing to do, but this is why we look for grants, and I wanted to stress that because I don't know if that message came across last time. Gonna keep rolling, not off of the topic of flooding. I did send an email out to the council. We had a hearing with the Architectural Access Board. We did receive a complaint from a resident. The Architectural Access Board scheduled a hearing. Director Callan and I were on the call. Rightfully so, they ruled in favor of the complainant. Basically back in 2011, we had done work on those sidewalks. The sidewalk was not made accessible at the time, so we anticipated, losing at least that piece of it. What they did rule on, and what I talked to the council about when this whole subject of the tree at 190 Somerset came up, and that's where the area was, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that, was, we were talking about doing crosswalks in front of below the tree. So that's gonna require a variance through the Architectural Access Board. We had added an application in, but it wasn't completed yet, and we referenced it, but what they did was the committee sort of in my opinion anyway, overstepped and ruled on that. They basically told us, oh, we're not gonna approve your variance either. That gives us, so we have appeal rights, right? We can either appeal that and ask for reconsideration, or we appeal it to, Superior Court, which, we're gonna use our appeal rights and appeal that decision, keep moving forward. But I just wanted to let them know that, I'd like the variance to be actually have a real hearing and be held, and if, and try to get the crosswalk approval like we talked about, and if not, then we'll look at other options, but that's where we stand on that right now. But we will use our appeal rights on that. Sad news, my perspective anyway, and probably a lot of others, we did receive notification that our police chief, Terrence Delahanty, is anticipating retiring in July. He's by far one of the best chiefs I've worked with, certainly one of the best chiefs in the state. He will sorely be missed. Thank him for his service, and there'll be proper accolades and celebrations when that time comes. But in the interim, thankfully, due to prior councils and what Chief Delahanty put in place, we do have succession planning. We do have 2 deputy police chiefs. My plan for replacing is I'm going to interview both of those deputies, myself and Lisa Howard, are going to conduct the interviews, because the school superintendent has a lot of interaction with the police chief, the school resource officer, and other matters, so it just makes a lot of sense to have Lisa there. And once those interviews are complete, I'll select the most qualified candidate, and then that will be a ripple effect down, and we'll have some other positions to fill after that. But that's the plan for filling that position, so we're moving forward with that. Sorry, I just wanna make sure I got all this place here. Working on, Council President talked about the school working on the FY25 budget. We are as well on the town side, along with the capital plan. I did want to remind, I know it didn't get on this agenda, but I'd like to put it on the next agenda to talk about appointing the Community Preservation Act Subcommittee, so we can start the education rolling for that for an anticipated vote on the November ballot, November 2024. And lastly, I'll finish with some good news. We got grants. We got the first time since 2017, the community got the Green Communities Grant. Winthrop is a green community. We put the application in to do some heat pump on top of the police station, some weatherization projects both at the police station and the DPW building, and then a small portion to go towards the purchase of an electric vehicle. The total is $192,000, so we got everything we asked for. So, kudos to Rachel and the team that put that together, and happy to get that grant, and we'll put it in again next year and see.
Great stuff.
Open for questions.
Before I go on to the council, a couple of things. You mentioned the pumps, which is tremendous news. Can you just explain the type of pumps and?
They're the pumps that Director Cal talked about, the 6-inch or?
6-inch trash pump.
Yeah, trash pump with a housing to a enclosure to, keep the noise down.
Noise level down,
Yep.
yep. And the capability should be,
Oh, adequate, yeah. I mean, we
Yes.
should be able to, they shouldn't need to run, depending upon how much water is there, but we can, should be able to pump it down relatively quickly, so. And,
Excellent.
the reason we talked about having it for there is for the, not only the title, but, especially Titlestone and Girdlestone are getting, when we get heavy rains, they're seeing flooding, so we wanna use it for that. And try to get that out, get the water out of the catch basin and where it's supposed to go.
and you're talking about Morton Street and the living levies and such, and I'm assuming this is working with, in coordination with Revere, because you kind of have to do both sides,
They also
correct?
have an MVP grant that's doing the same kind of work, yep.
Okay, and then something that you didn't touch upon, but we received a letter from the Northeast Vocational School, right, from Dave DeBarry, and I called Dave a couple days ago, and it's really good news, and really the vast majority of thanks on this goes to Representative Turco. He worked tirelessly to try to get $100 million from the state to be allotted to different vocational projects being done within the state. It came through, and the Northeast Tech got roughly, a little less, a little more, $30 million towards the cost of their project. That's good news for them. It's better news for us, right? Because it lessens our burden. We're right now in phase 2 of ramping up. When this gets fully paid for, it was going to be roughly $460,000 a year for the town of Winthrop. We started at $70,000 a couple of years ago. We're up to over $200,000 a year now, and we ramp up to $460,000 when it's complete. Because of this, our payments will go down approximately a little less than 20%, and we'll be in the $400,000 range. So that's a $60,000 savings a year for 25 years. So it's incredible. I thank Representative Turco again for his diligence on this. Thank the vocational school, because it is something that is sorely needed. They're going to increase their enrollment by 20%. Dave does a great job running that school, and very much looking forward to that project being complete. So that's some good news for the town. I'll open it up to questions. Council Aiello.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, thank you for the multidimensional attack you've been doing on the Pico neighborhood and the Girdlestone neighborhoods. I think the pumps is great news, and bringing that first package of engineering for looking at longer-term solutions is terrific. And, again, working with Congresswoman Clark to try to get the federal grant money, I think, around capital projects in particular, I think is important, given the challenges we've got of a whole series of things, to try to chase that money as aggressively as we can. So I think you're absolutely on the right track on all this stuff. So that's really terrific. The council president mentioned Revere on the,
big levies.
on the
Morton
Belle Isle
Street.
Marsh thing, Morton Street thing. One thing that I think is frustrating to most of the environmentalists who have been engaging in the MVP grant is not Revere, but the Boston side of the marsh. If you read the reports, if the marsh is not allowed to migrate, i.e. expand, with additional water coming in, that marsh eventually turns into a bay. Whether you care about the plants and animals and fish and all that stuff that are in there, which are important ecologically, once it turns into a bay, the absorption ability of the marsh and storms disappears. The one place where the marsh can grow is towards Bennington Street, towards Suffolk Downs. The city of Boston is planning on narrowing Bennington Street. Whether it's a good idea or not, I don't know, but they want to put it on a berm. They could just as easily put that on a bridge structure. They could allow the marsh to grow underneath a narrowed road because it'd be more open space. The T has said that if the city goes on bridge structure, the T would go on bridge structure, bringing it all the way to Suffolk Downs border. You don't have to go into Suffolk Downs, but at least you start giving the marsh a place to grow into, which is more protective for Winthrop and Revere people. Somehow we gotta figure out how to get the attention of the city of Boston. I think that's a challenge for this council on that topic. Again, we're faced long-term with rising sea levels and more storm surge of that marsh becoming a bay, which is something we want to avoid because that means more flooding over the long term, even with the berms in Winthrop. So, but otherwise, thank you for all the stuff you've been doing in the report.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on the charter changes that were voted on in the last election. Where are they in the process?
We sent them off to the, I believe. Yeah. so we're just waiting to hear back. It's our Attorney General's office.
And then when they come back and are hopefully approved, what's the next step?
They get incorporated into the charter.
Okay.
We posted the charter online, we'll get copies out, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilor Munson?
Yes, please. Thank you both, Council President, and thank you for all the great news. This is pretty exciting stuff. I mean, I'm pretty excited that we're part of the Green Community Grant, that we got some money there. We've already got the MPPA grant that we need to work through. So there's a lot of good things happening. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of kind of logistical questions. One is, how will the pump process work? So does someone give you a call and say, hey, we're on Girdleston, we've got 2 feet of water and I can't get out of my house? Or is it gonna be like a DPW kind of do the rounds and just see that there's accumulation or PICO or what have you? How is that gonna work? And,
The latter, yeah. We monitor it, we know.
okay, so there's no need to have any extra communication.
Everyone knew how much Steve and I talked before each storm, you know, they think we were hanging out all the time, but yeah, no, I mean, we know when it's coming, and at this point, we know when it's gonna happen, you know, between phone calls and emails, and now monitoring it, you know, we're sort of
Right.
on track with what happened.
I needed a pump today to get out of my house on Bank Street,
Councilor
because
Munson?
that storm drain is tied into the marsh. It comes right up. So do we get the pump down there?
It's up to the town manager.
Yep, well, that's the benefit to having the pump, it's on a trailer, so we can
So
move
it
them
will come
around.
down there?
So in other words, the answer to the question is, it'll be a routine job of the DPW to keep an eye on it, but if there's something out of the eyesight of the DPW, they can make a call into someone, if someone's stuck in their home, they call the fire, or they call the DPW,
They
or?
call the dispatch center, and then, they always get a message out, whether it's my office or whatever, they have all our numbers, so.
Okay. Another question I had about was the Morton Street and Bank Street kind of group project where there'll need to be some cooperation in terms of the berm, the living berm, as you said. How do people stay informed of something like this? Even if, I mean, I would imagine you're just literally contacting directly the residents for those meetings, but what if someone from the outside, like, let's say I wanted to make sure I was a part of that, so I could just stay ahead of what was happening, or just be aware of it. Is there an email? Is that part of the town manager's blog,
Well,
or?
it'll be part of the town manager's blog, just like we're gonna do, we've got upcoming meetings coming up with the, Revere Street Tip Project, we're gonna have some night meetings and a Saturday morning meeting to talk about that process. We'll do the same for that. Once we
Okay.
get the public meetings scheduled, we'll get it out, blast it out,
So as long-
social media and everywhere.
So as long as people are staying on top of the town manager's blog, they'll know of the meetings?
Yep, and social media.
And social media?
Yeah, we'll have it out on the Winthrop pages, yeah.
Okay. Then, as far as the 190 Somerset Street with the Architectural Access Board, they had a hearing, and they denied our variance that we never actually applied.
Well, the application wasn't complete yet, so
So they
had a
jumped the
draft, and
gun.
We had one more box we had to check and send something in, and they decided just to take it and rule on it, you know, because they were there and I was there, and so, yeah.
So this proceedings, the legal proceedings, how much appeals, how lengthy, I mean, how much money are we spending on legal fees to get this kind of appealed?
It's one of the benefits of having in-house town attorney.
It's all salaried?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that one person, a resident, said a while back, that I think that should, she suggested that the old middle school should be a part of every single town council meeting until it's been, long-term resolution has been made. Would you give us any kind of like update as to where the old middle school is at in terms of the RFI, in term, you know?
The RFI, we received one response on the RFI, it was offered up to the council members, some have picked it up, some haven't, and it's up on the website, on the town manager page, so if anybody wants to read it, it's there.
So basically, it's on us to get this on the agenda and get it going.
Right, there'll be a presentation from the one person
Okay.
that did respond.
Okay. And I'm thankful that you asked about the charter changes, and I also wanted to, you know, I guess talk about the 3A at some point and answer the question about when we should be able to talk at length about it and or have a discussion. I mean, we have yet to get responses from the questions that we asked. We don't even know all the answers to it. I mean, clearly there's a negative, you know, reaction to the initial onset of this. I mean, it's ludicrous to be told what can be done in our town by the state. But we don't even have all the facts yet. How can we make a decision if we don't even know the facts yet? So I'm just wondering where we're at on that as well, because I don't even know some of the basics. What's the penalty for delaying it? You know, how do we coyly, you know, dodge this bullet without losing money from the state? You know, basic stuff that I would just want to, so I didn't know where you would come through, on, what the timing might be like on the answers.
We don't have a lot of those answers, part of the latter half, we don't know all what the fines are gonna be yet, they've said, you know, it could impact grant funding, I mean, they listed all those grants, one of them being the MVP grant, you know, so there's many reasons on there, but to answer your first part of the question, we do have the RFP out for the second round of consulting, we got the grant for the 48,000, our town planner referenced it at the last meeting, that grant application's due in, I think, February 15th or 16th. The RFP, rather, you know, the bids are due in by the 15th or 16th, so, you know, we anticipate we'll get quite a response from that, and then we'll, you know, pick a company and start having that process, public hearings, that'll all be part of it, get the information out, come and present to the council. Remember what, you know, that first company put out is just, it was a limited scope they were given, they were asked to analyze it, could it work, based on the criteria that we were given, could it work in Winthrop, and that's what they did. But that's not carved in stone, right, that's just what they put out there, so it can still be tweaked, it can still be fine-tuned, and then what, you know, when and if that vote ever happens with the council, I guarantee it'll be something probably completely different than what we first saw.
So we couldn't legitimately actually have a vote to deny this, because we don't even have all the data, or?
We don't think you're, you know, all the data is not given to us because we don't know it yet. Nobody knows it. You know, we've given out materials to each counselor on the findings from Milton. We've seen letters from what Milton received. We know what they were told by the state. As far as the questions go that were submitted, there was 6 pages of questions, which is fantastic, from the counselors. The planner was out for a week, so this is gonna be on the agenda. The questions will be on the agenda at the next council meeting, so we can get as perfect a response as we could possibly get. I think most of us that have done the research and due diligence have a pretty good idea of what this is about. I don't see a lot of positives, but we're not gonna get into that right now. You know, we have something on new business that we hope will start a response from the town, and that will be coming up shortly. And I encourage the councilors to get information on their own as well. I mean, there's a lot of things going on out there. A lot of cities and towns are taking the bull by the horns and doing what they think is the right thing to do. And I think, you know, what I'm anticipating hopefully later will be a first step in some sort of action by this town council. So that will be coming up in new business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Town Manager Marino, I
do think it's important to be clear that the pumps and hoses aren't gonna solve that flooding issue that we have. It's a long-term issue with, as Director Callow said, 100-year-old storm drain pipes that need to be replaced. So I think, as a council, we should be ready and willing to appropriate additional funding should this initial appropriation run out and we're still waiting for that federal grant. I'd be willing to support that motion, Mr. President, if it comes up, and just want to make sure we keep our eyes focused on a long-term solution and not just trying to pump the water back out with the tide.
That's our goal and that's our direction, so we are. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you're already done in terms of securing those federal grants and keeping an eye on additional MVP opportunities for construction. There is significant federal money for that available.
Thank you. Council Schwab.
Two things. First of all, Tony just reminded, the pipes reminded me, Tony just reminded me today that there's a big water main break over near where I am. And I only bring that up not just because that I live there, but these pipes break a lot. And it's really old infrastructure. So adding density to this is also a huge problem. And it's going to remain a problem, and it's expensive. And every time, as Tony mentioned, we can't find where that break is because the pipes are so old, then it just increases the destruction that happens because of that. So, thank you for bringing that up. And I also wanted to say that we've been working on thinking about how we could take the whole area of, not beautification, but construction and the sidewalks and just the surrounding areas so people can walk safely. That is an area, and of course it came up because of just one problem that we had with the tree, but we need to make sure that we have safety in this town so people can get around. And so we'll be announcing perhaps some ideas that we have about that and a plan so we can put it on the table as a long-term as well as a big plan, and we can see as we get down the list how we're doing. All right, so that will hopefully come out of the health and safety meeting. And one more thing, President Lettieri, do you have on the town council, on your website, where I can see meetings like the planning meeting and other kinds of meetings like that? Because I'm afraid I'm missing them, and I'm not sure I know when they meet.
There's a calendar on the
Calendar.
website that has every meeting.
Every meeting?
Yes.
And
And the planning board is pretty regular. Board of Appeals is pretty regular.
Right.
Content, yeah.
And that's on
It's on the website.
on the town manager?
Yes, well,
It's
yeah.
on the.
Town
Oh,
website.
that's the
website.
town
The town
website.
website.
Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Duras.
First of all, let me add my thank you. What happened here 3 weeks ago at the town council meeting, with everybody expressing their experiences with flooding in all of those areas, it sticks with me, has stuck with me since we had that meeting. And so for you guys to make immediate action, really appreciate that. And I echo what Max just said. We need to treat this as a first step. There's a lot more work to do. So we'll be attuned to that. I just have one question that I remember from a few weeks ago that you or Director Callow were talking about. I think it might have been you, Steve, when you were talking about once the pumps are in place and they're working, I think you expressed a concern about kind of researching where that water could go, like where we were able or not able legally and otherwise to put that water. Is there any further thoughts on that?
We did, we looked very closely, thoroughly through the Clean Water Act.
Okay.
And there was no, basically fell back onto local jurisdiction,
Okay,
which was a good thing for us.
okay.
So we think we got
So
that.
we're good,
Yeah,
okay,
We'll put the sill sock at the end to filter it and then, yeah, we'll be okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just say something really quick, because I know where this subject will come up later in the agenda. But as far as 3A is concerned, I first of all, thanks to the two of you for holding that hearing. You know, you inspired Hannah and I, because we have scheduled a hearing in this room, I believe, Hannah, correct? On Wednesday, February 21st, 6 o'clock, did we say, I think, or 7?
I think you said 7.
I can't remember.
We'll confirm the time.
We'll make sure we get the time out. Some of you who may have attended the last town council meeting when Rachel and Zoe were going through their presentation about 3A, you might remember the maps that were put up on the screen. And I know for me in Precinct 6, living along the beach, it caught my eye that my precinct had bright colors on it in terms of the target for zoning. So it's important that we hear directly from everyone in our precincts and give multiple opportunities to hear from everybody. I think it goes without saying that it's pretty unanimous on the council. We all have our both understanding of the need to have affordable housing, but also the big concerns that we have about what's been put in front of us. So it'll be good to have those sessions and come to some productive dialogue with the state and decisions for the town.
Thank you. CDICR?
Yeah, I was not able to attend the last meeting, they didn't meet. I know Councilor DeRoss was there, which I spoke with him briefly, but I tried to get an update beforehand, but I'll try to get one for the next meeting. I wasn't able to connect with any of the members, so.
Okay, very good.
I was there, I'm on the board.
Gonna say, we have a member here, yes?
Perfect.
Yeah, I was there, Aaron Williams, new member, it was a lot of us just getting to know each other, I think we had 3 new members, and so we're just getting excited for the year ahead, so more on that next time, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And Mr. President, if I might say real quick, having served on the Human Rights Commission in Melrose when I lived there for 8 years, I have a special affinity for the CDICR members, and it was nice to be with you and actually see a room full of CDICR members. I think we're at the point where I think there's two more positions, 2 or 3 more positions that we're looking to fill, but getting there, and you're gonna do great work. Thank you.
Old business, we don't have any. New business, we have plenty. So new business, I am submitting a motion that the town council transfer $50,000 from the town council reserve account to a new special article account titled Stormwater Engineering for Phase 1 of the stormwater engineering for Tilestone, Girdlestone, and Pico Ave areas, or take any other action relative thereto. Do we have a second? Okay. This is going to be sent to finance. So the purpose of this, and to get back to Councilor DeRoss right there, it is definitely not my intention to spend $50,000 of the council reserve and then stop the project. So, you know, the goal is to finish this. This is phase 1, right? It's an engineering project. The engineering's gonna cost almost $700,000, I think $650 in totality. This will get, Woodward and Curran is, you know, they've been great with the town, and Steve's talked to them, and Tony's talked with them, and they're anxious to get going on this. So this will be phase 1. We are still waiting for a grant, but we will, you know, do what we have to do to keep this project going. You know, this will be an expensive project at some point in the end, and then decisions will be made on how, it's not if, it's how, you know, the town will pay down that debt. And again, you get to the point, and Councilor Swope mentioned it about water main breaks and stuff, and if you're doing a project of this size, we're not going to, I would not recommend to go in and change the stormwater and say, okay, let's leave the water pipes, let's leave everything else there. You're gonna wanna do the water and sewer, right? So it's a project, but it's a project that needs to be done. So this is phase 1, this is the start, this is where it begins. So this will be sent to finance, we'll be getting it back at our next meeting and hopefully voting on it right then.
Sounds good.
Council President?
Yes, Councilman.
Just on that same topic, do you mind if I just interject? One idea I thought that would be really wise would be, instead of always just doing a routine kind of road pipe replacement like we did like last year on Bartlett, it's just part of a routine. Why wouldn't we approach the flooded streets first, and where we can actually make a huge impact while using already money reserved for pipe work?
Yeah, I think Steve has a list of how projects are done, correct?
It is correct, but I think what John is asking, so certain things, John, are eligible for certain funding. All right, stormwater pipes can't be paid for with MWRA money. Water and sewer.
Water and sewer,
Stormwater is basically, you can put chapter 90 money to it, but we don't get a lot of chapter 90 money. We get $280,000 a year, and that really gets eaten up by sidewalk and roadway resurfacing. So it becomes a debt to the community. So it's just what money is eligible for what types of pipe repair.
So the water and sewer is what we get money for, to repair every year, and we have a routine schedule, correct?
We get money right now, the money we're getting right now is lead money. We're working on lead pipe removal. Our MWRA water main money has been spent through 2028. That was the CBD project, depleted that money up to 2028.
Oh.
So there is sewer money available, but right now there's no water main money available.
So we're not,
Unless the town funds.
and do we have, so we don't have anything booked for this coming year in terms of water main repair?
Oh, I got plenty in the capital plan, it's whether or not we can fund it.
Oh, I gotcha. And then wouldn't it be beneficial to tackle those in the flood areas first to be able to just, or does that even matter?
Well, it does matter, but you gotta fund that.
Right. So all I'm suggesting is if we could just create a prioritization with flood areas, instead of just the kind of, routine kind of,
It's not routine. I mean, we're attacking strategically our break areas, our aged infrastructure. So a water main break can cost you $400,000 in 10 minutes. So
that's where you're going after it.
It's not that we're willy-nilly just going after
Okay.
stuff.
I really appreciate you saying that. You're going after it strategically. Thank you.
It's great to incorporate the stormwater, but again, it has to be funded.
And again, even this engineering, we know we want to do it, we know we don't want to get it done. If there's people in the audience that saying, why don't you just vote on this now, this has to be advertised, it's over a certain amount of money, but it's gonna be done. Also, new business, town appropriate $33,564.10. I move that the town council vote to appropriate $33,564.10 from free cash to the opioid settlement funds as per DLS Bulletin, BUL 2023-07 attached. Those amounts represent the settlement funds received during fiscal '23 and not yet spent. That must be spent on opioid remediation-related purposes. Note that future receipts will be deposited directly into the special revenue fund as per the DLS guidelines, or take any other action relative thereto. Is there a second on this? Is
Second.
Town manager, can you just put this into layman's terms?
Yeah, we get the settlement funds from all the different lawsuits that are going on with the opioid settlements, all the pharmacies, Walmart, et cetera. The first year, there was some confusion as to where the funds were gonna go. They just told us to put it in as miscellaneous revenue. Since then, guidance is coming out in future years that'll go right into the fund, but for now, we have to take FY 23's piece that just got rolled into miscellaneous revenue and ultimately rolled in free cash. That'll get earmarked here and put into the right fund so we can spend it as it was meant to be.
Okay. And that is also sent to finance. Okay, move that the town council appropriate in the handicap parking fines account the amount of $20,000 to be used for expenses to benefit persons with disability in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 22G, or take any other action relative thereto. This will also be sent to finance. Now, we have not touched this account, right? There's roughly $76,197 in the account. So we want to appropriate it in a way that we can spend some of the money for what it's intended to do. So that is what this motion is about. And then move that the town council vote to accept into the Fire Donation Fund 569, a donation in the amount of $1,100 from Ms. Louise Corkum and appropriate for expenditure in the below account for the purpose of fire equipment for the fire department, or take any other action relative thereto. Louise is an incredibly nice woman who has donated this money. It has to be accepted by the town in order for us to take it. Is there a motion?
Motion.
There's a motion by Councilor DeMarco, second by Councilor Munson. This is something we can vote on now. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Louise. Your donation is greatly appreciated. Counselor DeRoss, floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. I want to take a minute, little switch of gears. I'm about to make a motion for the council's consideration that we adopt a proclamation that will establish recognition of a History and Heritage Month observance calendar in Winthrop for 2024. Just to explain a little bit of background, during my time on the Winthrop Licensing Board with my friend Kurt here, coordinating Sunday morning yoga classes on Winthrop Beach. I see a couple of people who've attended yoga class in the audience. And meetings with a lot of my constituents in Precinct 6 during the campaign, some of whom are longtime Winthrop residents, some of whom are new to the community. I heard a common desire amongst a lot of people in the community for a few things. Create events and opportunities for us to meet our neighbors, have some fun together, celebrate and learn from the rich diversity of backgrounds represented by the different cultural communities in Winthrop, offer more opportunities for our small businesses to showcase themselves and drive more traffic and revenue for their business, and create a stronger sense of belonging and safety in our community. Then I attended, and I know many of you did, the awesome International Night last month. I think most of the council was there, actually, that our friend Anita Preble and the Winthrop schools put on. And I think anybody who attended will still have that memory of all the kids walking around to the 15 tables of the different countries and handing the little passports to get stamped as they sampled the food. So those are the kinds of things that inspired me about this proclamation. And this proclamation I'm about to read in this motion is something similar to what we did in a couple of other communities that I've lived in that really thrived as a result of doing this. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that the Town Council adopt the following. A proclamation recognizing Winthrop History and Heritage Months for the calendar year 2024. And I'll try to keep this brief, intentionally wrote this brief. Whereas the town of Winthrop, as a town of diverse cultural backgrounds, understands the importance of celebrating the history and heritage of its diverse communities as vital to its ability to thrive as an inclusive community. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Winthrop Town Council extends its support in celebration of the following History and Heritage Months for the 2024 calendar year based on the observances recognized by the U.S. government and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We encourage all residents to join in the planning and celebration of these observances. In February, we're already here, African American History Month. In March, we have 3, Women's History Month, Irish American Heritage Month, and Greek American Heritage Month. In April, we have Arab American Heritage Month. In May, we have 3, Jewish American Heritage Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and Military Appreciation Month. In June, we have LGBTQ Pride Month, Juneteenth celebration, Immigrant Heritage Month and World Refugee Day, and finally in June, Caribbean American Heritage Month. September and October, this is a unique one because it starts on September 15th, ends on October 15th due to a certain holiday. That is Hispanic Heritage Month. In October, we have 2, Italian American Heritage Month and Disability Awareness Month. And finally, in November, we have Native American Heritage Month. So that is the end of the proclamation, and I'll just add a quick anecdote before we move, that I did attend the CDICR meeting last week, and our new chair of the CDICR, Kelly Gall, who's going to do a great job, and the rest of the CDICR, including Aaron, who's here tonight, have agreed to play a leading role in helping us coordinate these events. So if we adopt this tonight, stay tuned for lots of publicity in terms of what's going to come. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Discussion on the proclamation. Councilor, Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councilor DeRoss for his work on this. I think it does a wonderful job of acknowledging that we recognize everybody in the community. It looks at the United States and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts recognized events. And I think this is going to be a great way for the CDICR to have a scaffolding to help kick off their event. So thank you for your effort on this.
Councilor DeMarco.
Same, Counselor DeRoss. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I mean, we are, as a community, what we're made up of, and I think our differences can bring us together when we learn about each other, and I just think this is fantastic. One thing that I thought was great with the International Night at the school is you have a lot of people from, who weren't born here, who had an opportunity to show their American friends their culture, their background, and to see their faces light up and see them embrace them into their community in a way.
Yes.
I think that's a really special thing to do, and I'm 100% for this.
Counselor Swope.
Ditto.
Counselor Munson.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you for your work on this. We've spoken at length on it, and I'm glad this is hopefully moving forward tonight. I've spoken to State Rep Jeffrey Turco, and he said that he's been a part of this in Revere, and he's seen it basically as an opportunity for civic engagement, people to get together, to be proud of their different identities, and it's a really good opportunity to just be. Where with social media making people more disconnected, virtually, we're now going to have an opportunity to be more connected in person, and I look forward to it. So thank you very much.
Counselor Ayala.
Just another ditto for me. I mean, great work, great work tying everything together. Your footnotes at the back end as well, make it like a study project. So, and everything my fellow councilors said, I think this is wonderful.
All right, so there's a proclamation.
I'll
Second.
It's been seconded. Roll call, please.
Sorry, do it in order. Counsel Fusillo. Counsel Munson.
Yes.
Counsel Swope.
Yes.
Counsel Aiello.
Yes.
Counsel DeRoss.
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco.
Yes.
Counsel Tassaneri.
Yes.
Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes.
Thank you.
Proclamation is passed. Thank you, Counselor DeRoss. Just going out of order for a bit, a couple of quick things. There's one appointment that the town council accept the appointment made by Town Council President Lettieri to appoint Robert O'Neill to the Board of License for a term to expire June 30th, 2027. Information's been circulated. Mr. O'Neill's application has been circulated. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations. Councilor DeMarco spoke about his precinct meeting the other night, and I did attend and thank him for inviting me. But, you listen to all the people, and one of the comments that came out of it struck me, and I said, geez, that's a pretty good idea. So I jotted it down, and we do this with the school committee. We do a school committee report to kind of update people. We do it with the CDICR. But there are, especially now, there's so much going on, right? But we have policy boards that some people have trouble finding when the meetings are, which are on the website, but you can't make them, or whatever the case may be. They're not televised like the council meetings all the time, and, stuff gets talked about.
Right.
But
That's
people
what I
don't
was
necessarily know what's being talked about. So we thought, well, I don't want to take credit for it, but a constituent thought this was a good idea, and I wrote it down, and I think it is a good idea. So we will be adding to the council meetings to have an update on policy boards, items that are going on with policy boards, i.e. Board of Appeals, i.e. Planning Board, i.e. Health Department. So people, if there's something going on that's going to potentially change policy in the town, it would be better to have, instead of us seeing it on the agenda, we're gonna vote on ABC, and you're saying, I've never heard of that, I can't believe they're voting on this, I've never heard of it. So now it would be a good idea, I think it's a great idea, that we put it on the agenda, so we'll have an idea, like we could say, oh, 3A is being discussed on the planning board. It was discussed at the last meeting, this is what they're saying, this is where they're going. So we will be adding updates for policy-making boards, so we can give, this is kind of a good viewpoint for most people, get the, best bang for your buck, I guess, by heading to one meeting or watching one meeting. So that will be adding to the agenda starting next week, 2 weeks.
Can I just ask a?
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Would this be a member of the council attending those meetings and
Well,
reporting
we
back?
would like to, we could have a surrogate from the council or a liaison from the council, like we do with the CDICR. It could be a committee member. It could be as simple as just us getting minutes in a timely manner and taking it from there. But if you're asking me to volunteer for all three of these.
You know I would, so.
She's the one volunteering. Plan of action for that, but we will have reports at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so now, the last new business is, I had put down 3A, special consideration for the town of Winthrop. So, I will start by saying that, again, Councilor DeMarco had a meeting, there was a lot of discussion about it. I made my thoughts clear, right? And I will say, like Councilor Munson mentioned earlier, nobody knows all the answers, and some of it, and if you wait for all the answers, it's gonna be too late, because there never will be all the answers. We don't know. Milton Town Council passed 3A. Town meeting passed 3A, and the citizens were upset. The citizens had a petition, the citizens got enough signatures, now it's going to the ballot, and now it will be voted on yes or no. So obviously, the town is nervous, wondering what the repercussions might be, and they wrote to the state, and the state wrote back and said, basically, I'm not remembering verbatim, but basically, you may be fined. Didn't say, yes, you will be fined, no, you won't be fined. And it didn't say you're not eligible for grants, but it listed, 15 grants that you might be eligible for, but you probably won't get, so it's nothing at least from everything I've read, it's nothing definitive. There is no $100,000 fine, and you will not be eligible for this, this, and that. And I don't know when, if we are ever gonna get them, because some of these were already due, right? And these answers aren't even happening, and there were communities that had to present these on December 2023. Every information I have as of now, I am dead against this, okay? So I just want to be clear about that. But, we, as a council, we have to make sure we're doing what's best for Winthrop. I don't think this is best for Winthrop. You look at something and you say, okay, there's compromise in everything you do in life. Tell me something that's in it for Winthrop. I still haven't seen that, except negative. But anyway, we're still learning, right? So I thought it would be a good idea to write a letter to the governor. So, Tony has been incredibly helpful with me on this, and I thank Councilor Aiello and Councilor Swope too for their thoughts. But it's a page and a half, but I guess it'd be best to just read it. So I'm gonna read this, if you don't mind, a 90-second, hopefully. And I'm going to ask the town council to accept this and have us all sign this and send it to the governor and see where this gets us. It's a start. So this is to Governor Maura Haley, from Jim Lettieri, President of the Winthrop Town Council, and all Winthrop Town Councilors, dated February 4th, 2024. RE compliance of DHCD's guidelines for GLC Section 40A, Section 3A, MBTA communities. Dear Governor Haley, Winthrop needs to maintain its identity as a welcoming small community of 1.6 square miles on the shores of Boston Harbor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Demands to be built more housing via the MBTA community's 3A zoning mandates are at odds with one another. While we agree that we could add some housing in a planned and organized manner, 882 units are beyond our capacity. Listed below are our concerns and requests from your office for some special consideration. And then there's bullets. Reclassify Winthrop as an adjacent small town, which will reduce the number of units to 5% of the total housing stock to account for Winthrop's size constraints, i.e. a peninsula totaling 1.6 square miles. Existing density, Winthrop ranks 9th for density. Existing diverse housing stock and limitations due to only having 2 means of egress, with both being compromised during extreme weather and high tide events. Second bullet point, request an extension of time until December 31st, 2025, in line with our request to be reclassified as an adjacent small town, to allow for our town council, planning board, and consultant time to fully analyze Winthrop's housing stock and upcoming projects, to allow for MBTA 3A zoning districts to be established. Next bullet point, giving the existing dense neighborhoods referenced above flooding concerns from extreme weather events and high tides and the limited land mass that we have only 1.6 square miles, reduce the multifamily zoning district egregious requirement for multiple town citywide districts to 10 acres, which would allow us the flexibility to meet the unit requirement without unfairly burdening one or two neighborhoods. Next bullet, recognize that Winthrop has an underutilized bus service that is being reduced in the upcoming MBTA bus route changes that were proposed last year, with 25% of our population being senior citizens and many unable to get to the existing and soon-to-be modified bus stops. We request more flexibility to create the zoning further away from our limited MBTA bus routes. Next bullet, reclassifying Winthrop as an adjacent small town will recognize that Winthrop has limited to no land for new development, and our redevelopment opportunities have very narrow streets that cannot handle additional street parking. That ongoing redevelopment that has been naturally occurring and is already causing parking issues in Winthrop's densely populated neighborhoods. Only 15 pages left. Last bullet, unlike other communities, Winthrop is unique. We have additional parking and risk from MWRA and Logan Airport. For example, our proximity to Logan Airport causes air and noise pollution. The close proximity to the airport also causes health concerns for our residents, including increased asthma and cancer rates. Also, unlike most other communities in the Commonwealth, and even though it is technically in Boston, Winthrop is the host community to the MWRA sewer treatment facility and the traffic and risks associated with the operation of this facility. The additional public safety resources that both organizations require to our police and fire departments increase our call volume and stress the departments. Lastly, a safety incident at the MWRA plant or Logan Airport will require a regional response, and if our access roads are overly congested and compromised, it will negatively affect our incident response. Given everything listed above, we reiterate that Winthrop is unique and believe it has to be placed in the wrong category as an adjacent community. Winthrop is a small sliver of land threatened by population, rising tides, aging infrastructure, high density, and limited commercial tax base. Please consider our request for reclassification and a reduction in the MBTA district egregious requirement, as we are truly a unique community with challenges that do not fit the one-size-fits-all that the MBTA community's 3A law guidelines offered by the Commonwealth. Thank you for your consideration. We look forward to hearing from you. Sincerely, blah, blah, blah. So I think, personally, I think this is a first step. Do I think this goes deep enough? No, but I think it's a first step. And you know, instead of playing the bully, we try to do the right thing and make, have the state make allowances for us, and see how this goes. Will it fall on deaf ears? I'm not sure. I am hoping that the governor will take us seriously and have some sort of response to this, and I encourage her to do that. I know she has a lot on her plate, and so do we, and it is our responsibility to watch over the 19,000 residents in Winthrop. It is not my responsibility to watch over Cambridge and Somerville and every place else in the state. So I do ask for council feedback, and I ask the council for approval to send this letter and the willingness to each of us sign it. Council Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who had hands on this letter. I think this does a really wonderful job of hitting all the points that the residents have brought up tonight and that we've seen in our emails and at the last meeting. I understand that the state is looking for every community on the MBTA to share the burden of a housing crisis, but Winthrop is unique in this. A lot of times we feel we're unique in many things. Sometimes we aren't, but this is one where we definitely are. Our density, our size, our two egresses, I mean, everything in this letter is real, and I think it's very important to get this in front of the governor and help her understand that this isn't just us. There are probably other communities like us that don't fit the mold of what 3A is trying to do. So I think this is a really great start to see what our options are. So thank you to everybody.
Councilor DeMarco.
You know, a lot of the meeting that I had the other night dealt a lot about this, and it's, so I understand, and Kurt, you said this, the state is putting out the positives out there, you know, when it comes to this, and from a state perspective, you know, and from an MBETA's perspective, it makes sense on a statewide issue, statewide in some regards. But I was elected by the people of Winthrop. I represent Winthrop. I do not represent the state of Massachusetts. The big thing that came out of the meeting the other night was when somebody stood up, and I don't remember who it was, to be honest with you, but somebody stood up and said, all right, so here are all the problems with it in the town of Winthrop. Police, fire, evacuation routes, density, you know, came up. What is the positive for Winthrop? And nobody could say one thing. So to reiterate what you were asking earlier, I am a firm no. However, this letter is a very respectful, nice first step to send to the governor. And let's see what we get out of it. I'm behind it.
Council Swope.
We had other information that we didn't put in this letter, because we have more ammunition coming when we get it. But there are a lot of questions. So Brookline was able to do this. Now Brookline, I mean, I'm not sure how Brookline did this. I'm not sure, because I've heard that we have to have new housing. But I'm not sure we have to have new housing. I'm not sure we don't have some housing already here, so we have to figure that out. And I have 22 questions on the table for when I come, so I'm not lacking questions. But one of the things that we didn't put in the letter, but we will bring up, only 36% of the units in Winthrop are single family. That's a striking number, because 76% of the statewide units are single family. So I can't wait for that one to hit. Please bring her on, because I'd like to talk to her about that. So, I mean, we've already done a lot of work on this in an interesting way. So I don't want to say a firm no now. I know how many of you feel, and believe me, when I saw it, I felt that way too. But I think there's a way to negotiate around this. We're going to give it our best shot. I don't think we should say, no, we won't do it, because for all the reasons, I don't want him to tell me that we can't do something in this town because we need the money. So if whatever we can negotiate.
Council Munson.
Thank you. I applaud the effort for this letter, but I think that what the most important part, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a compromise, and I appreciate the fact that you're kind of accepting the challenge of kind of tackling some of this housing crisis, but I don't necessarily, I think the most important part of this letter is asking for a delay. Because when you're asking for a reclassification, what you're asking for is from 882 to be reduced to 441, and that's still a lot. And so I would just think that, I would really press home the delay part and giving us, because quite frankly, I think that might be the best strategy. If we can delay, we don't have to be fighting lawsuits with the state. We don't have to be, losing money and opportunities from the state. But at the same time, we don't have to comply. And so we let the other towns fight this battle legally. And by the time 2 years ends, we'll know so much. Who knows? The Attorney General might not even be there enforcing this anymore. I don't think that we should just stick our neck out there and be the ones that are the first in line to get slapped by the state saying, oh yeah? Well, watch us take this money away. Because quite frankly, our budget is more, I think the finance people know more than me, but it's like 11 or 12, like it's a large, large percentage. I know that it's not at stake from this, but my big pushback on this letter would be asking more for delay. Like even in the closing paragraph, you need to ask for that again, because it wasn't even asked for. It was for the reclassification and the reduction in the acreage. Those are nice details, but that's almost saying, we'll play ball with you, just reduce our responsibility. I think that the delay is the most important part in here. Because if we don't have to play ball at all until this thing all rolls over and blows up as an unconstitutional event that is like crazy, that a state can force a town to how to zone. I mean, I appreciate the fact that they're asking all the towns to take a little bit of the burden of this housing crisis. And yeah, we should help out. But this is crazy. And so I'm saying, push for the delay, rewrite it, just tweak it a little bit so the delay is the most important part. And I think that is my pushback, and that is my strategy.
Asking for the delay is, you're asking for a delay, which we did. You can't ask for it harder or stronger, we're asking for a delay, which I think is incredibly important. There was something brought up at, again, Councilor DeMarco's meeting about, oh, you could pay $35,000 for a delay. You cannot pay $35,000 for an extension. $35,000 was said to Milton as a possible fine. It is not a fee to pay for an extension. There is no fee for an extension. We are very clear that we want an extension, and that I do agree, it is a very important piece. There's much more meat and potatoes into discussing our density and small area and need to be reduced. I've said it from the beginning, I am a no. So to me, I'm voting no whenever it comes before, if it does. But I think this is, you try to do the right thing and try to be cordial and write a letter. I'll be somewhat surprised if we hear back, but, I don't want to be the last one to write a letter. I think we're acting on this pretty quickly, and I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, I would like to have the councilors sign it with me. I'm willing to do it if I have to do it as a council president, but I would like to have, more in numbers, strength in numbers. Councilor Ayala.
I agree with the council president that it's clear enough on requesting the delay, so I think we ought to keep the language there as is. I think the way the letter is crafted, it puts us on the high ground of trying to get some accommodation without giving up any of our options to later say no, right? So we're not cashing in anything that we can't use later on. We will get more data that will hopefully even be more helpful. I mean, I gather from other towns that along with the physical analysis, there's a fiscal impact analysis that has been, that has been done in almost every other community. So we need to make sure that happens, because then the questions that have been raised, which are the good questions, which is, how much do we get in property taxes versus how much is this gonna cost us for this and this and this and this, and we can see that, and so that may add to the arguments that we can make further downstream as we go through.
Yes.
So, Jim, I think you sort of hit this thing right in the middle of a sort of a delicate area, and I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you. Councilor Tesniak.
I do want to say that there's too much that we don't know right now at all. So this letter is a great way to take a first step towards not compliance, but at least getting more answers from the state. I would ask, because I'm very concerned about the constitutionality of the whole thing and the fact that we're getting home rule taken away. But, and I think Mr. Perry mentioned before, it's a slippery slope. This would be a slippery slope. So that would be a big problem. I think we should expand our audience, Mr. President, of this letter. Maybe we should include Secretary Augustus, include the House and Senate housing chairs, and Senate President and the Speaker, current Speaker of the House.
Nice.
And our own, and if we can't get our own representatives and senator to sign the letter, we should include them as addressees.
Turco should do that.
That's,
I'm pretty sure that Representative Turco is on board with, he definitely
So the
has
letter-
concerns, and he will come to one of our meetings in the near future to discuss it. But your comments are taken well, and we will be more inclusive in the letterhead. I can't do it right now.
I just want to get public comment before you vote.
I can't.
Very quickly,
And
I just want to say congratulations on that letter. I think it's extremely well written. I would echo Max's suggestion that if we care to, we expand the addressees, the audience. And I want to be clear, and I think you made this clear, that this isn't just going to be a letter that's dropped in US mail and we're going to sit idly by and wait for a response. We have state representatives and a state senator, and a state senator who happens to be very involved in housing at the state level, that I would love to have them respond with an audience for us. And I know that we do have an intergovernmental affairs committee, so the person chairing that may want to be directly involved in that as well. Last thing I wanted to say really quick is I'm glad we're taking this approach because if you do look at all of the different grants and funding that the state is threatening to not follow through on for us, I believe at the end of that bulleted list is the MVP grant, as you mentioned, Town Manager. And for any of us who were there that day on Morton Street at the Woods Hole event, where they were basically describing to us the living levees and berms that they are talking about having there are people in real pain on Morton Street who, and many other parts of the town that flood on a regular basis. So I think we just need to take a step like we're taking with this letter and realize that the state is lowering the hammer on us with something that's very important. And it's important that we have an opportunity like this, which I hope opens up dialogue with the state. The state cannot afford to have a flooded Winthrop. And for anybody who's paying attention, if you go to a website like climatecentral.org, you're going to see that they are predicting by the year 2100, I know that feels a little bit far off, but by then, the chances of coastal communities in Massachusetts and greater Boston area of having an annual flooding event 7 feet above the high tide line is increased by 40%. So in other words, they're telling us, you need to get your act together about climate resiliency. It's not just a Winthrop issue, it's a regional issue, it's a state issue, it's a national issue, it's a global issue. So when they start to threaten things like MVP funding, we need to pay attention, we need to enter into dialogue, and I think that letter is a perfect way to do it.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other comment. Council Clerk, take a roll call, please.
A roll call on this?
And this will be to send a letter with changes suggested by Councilor Tassinari in terms of the addressees.
Oh, okay, okay. Counsel Fusillo. Counsel Munson.
Yes.
Counsel Swope. Yes. Counsel Aiello.
Yes.
Counsel DeRoss.
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco.
Yes.
Counsel Tassinari.
Yes.
Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. The changes will be made. The letter will be in the town clerk's office over the next couple of days for people to go in and sign it, because we're not going to sign this letter until the addressees are done. And I thank you for the support.
Mr. President, once we're all signed, we should publish that in the transcript.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. We'll get a quote on that. I'm sorry, Brian, public comment.
Thank you for bringing up the addressees. That was one of my points. I think everyone in that has to know, and if you're sending it to the wrong person, it could sit in a mailbox for months, and then you don't get your extension. I also think it should add the school limitations and classroom sizes and how that will directly affect us, because I think that's very important. I think the barn door was left open on that by the vote. And I don't think, and I agree with Council Munson that you're kind of compromising before you even start. I think that the big push for that letter should just be to evaluate the situation and return with the idea, but not to negotiate. Because I think you're negotiating away your rights as a council, as a governing body. And again, slippery slope, I keep saying it, I'm sorry to have to say it, but what's the next? There are other bills that are coming down the pike that are gonna take even more authority away from you as far as accessory use of buildings. Those basements we were just talking about, those attics we were just talking about are gonna become usable, livable units for more people with more parking and more issues. So the more that we acquiesce to this type of overreach, the more we lose. And the less that we fight and the less that we reach out to other communities, the less of a chance we have of winning. So I think we need to reach out to other cities and towns and look for, you know, for a coalition to go to the State House, to get our state representative and our senator, no matter where they stand, to represent us, not their ideas, but our own. Our city and town, our citizens, our property interests. I invested in this town. I grew up here, I own 2 businesses here, I served on every single committee there is here. I ran against Jimmy Lettieri. I won though.
It was a short term, it was a short term. It was a 5-month term.
Position before I could really do anything. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, property values are up, and I want them to be up because I invested here. If I invested in Apple stocks 20 years ago, is it okay for the government to come back and ask me, gee, you know what, other people didn't have the ability to invest at that time, so let's bring that down, that value, and bring down your profit. These are investments we've all made in businesses and in homes and in a place to live for our families. So to talk about compromising before we even fight, I think you'd just be asking for the time to evaluate and respond. And in the interim, have our town attorney reach out to other attorneys, because I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing in this law that's good for the town of Winthrop. And I represent developers in the past. And let me tell you, it's going to come. If you open that door, this was written with nothing about affordable housing. And again, chapter 40B allows affordable housing to be built here with the same loosened restrictions on zoning as this law. So if there really was a need for affordable housing, or there was gonna fuel that, then 40B would have filled that gap. So I'm sorry if I sound angry, because I am. I don't want to lose my community. And my wife just told me to calm down. But
I don't disagree with you, Brian. Ultimately, our response is the vote. If it ever comes to a vote, that's ultimately what we have to do. We have to do what we believe is best for the town of Winthrop, which is no.
Because we're giving up our rights to govern our own destiny for this town.
You're right.
Thank you. Mark said it.
Yes, Mark.
Again, the reason we want to vote and see where everybody in the council stands is because we don't want to have a time squeeze if you guys decide to move forward with 3A, and then we can't get enough signatures to put it on a special ballot, okay? That's what we want. That's why we want to know where all of you stand today.
Yep.
Today, so that if we have to do a special ballot, we have the time to gather signatures and get it on a special ballot. Okay? I'm just trying to protect my interests here in this town.
No, totally understand. And you understand you need, to
Time to do
feel
that.
comfortable, you need 4 councilors to tell you, you need 6 years' votes to pass
Right,
the
and that's
this
why
order.
I want to know where all of you stand today on this issue.
Councilors have their ability to say that. I think a couple of us had. Councilor, I'm sorry, Mr. Cuccio.
I want to say exactly what Brian Parent said.
Ditto?
Exactly.
Ditto for word
And
of the-
if we agree to this thing in this area, we have given up our right down the road in any area, totally unrelated to this. And what I think I hear people saying is, this is a really stupid idea for Winthrop. And you know something, we get nothing from it. So we're going to agree to let them do half of it to us.
This isn't agreeing to do half of
Well, we
it.
compromised on it.
This is not agreeing to compromise. This does not say that if we are given this, that we're gonna come back and you have my yes vote for this. I didn't say that.
don't
I am
wanna
a
get
no.
vote-
I
don't
am a
wanna get vote
no.
For 440 units, because that's only $20 million that will have to fund in additional money the schools every year.
And when you,
So add the amount of kids, put them in the school, $22,000 a student, how much does it come out to be? So instead of 39 million, it's 20 million. And we are giving up our right down the road to rule ourselves. It's appalling. I don't think that the whole thing is constitutional to begin with.
I agree.
You know, they put out a mandate, and everybody talks about, we have no idea what it is, in an ineffective, inefficient manner. Nobody knows what's going on, so we're gonna say, okay, we'll go along with it. I say, the letter is wonderful, take out the compromise.
Kathleen.
Hi, sorry, I was actually gonna read from home, but got caught up and couldn't get on Zoom. So I'm gonna go a little bit off my notes. Sorry, Kathleen Capuccio, Precinct 2. One, I'd like to thank the council president for introducing the idea that was brought up last week at Councilor DeMarco's meeting with the residents regarding 3A, in the sense of having our policy boards, whether we have a representative from the town council that's at the board meetings, or a representative from the board, the policy-making boards, come report to the town council. I know part of me is, even though pretty much you're all volunteer for what you do, I think it's a little too, and I'm not saying Mr. Letier, or Council President said this, but I think it's a little more of an onus to have someone from the planning board come to the council meetings to discuss what they're talking about. I think it would be great to have a representative from the town council. I think Tony's already got enough on his plate, to go to those meetings to discuss this. So this, pursuant to my research and some other people that are really behind the vote no to this, and I can tell you, we will have, again, I'm hoping the council votes no. We will have the signatures within the 21 days. We already know the verbiage we need. We are, there's about, I don't know, 6 of us maybe, that are really connected with other towns, probably 6 or 7 towns, about how they're going forward. So we will have the signatures, we can get them in time, but Mr. I think the Senate said, I agree with you, in the sense of, let's find out sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Pursuant to the charter, once if the town council votes in favor of amending our zoning pursuant to 3A, we have 21 days to get a verified signature petition with the exact language of the vote verified by our town clerk. I'm confident we can do that. But I also agree, we shouldn't have to go that route.
Right.
So just a couple of things, and I'm gonna, sorry, go off book. People are better when I was at home, because it was gonna be a lot shorter. Senator Lydia Edwards, who represents Winthrop, is one of the biggest proponents of this bill. I've reached out to Senator Edwards with 4 different emails to ask her for a meeting to discuss this. 0 response. I'm actually going to agree with Mr. Tassinari in the sense of, he didn't say Lydia's name, which he knows is the chair of the housing. I think the letter should also be addressed to Senator Lydia Edwards and to Jeff, who is against this. I think that's great to add. I think Council President's letter that he did with maybe other people is fabulous. I think it's really great. I think it's great. But I think people in the room, and people need to know, we have a representative at the state level that wants to usurp the Winthrop Town Council in our zoning. This senator represents the Winthrop residents, and she is all for this. So please, let's really think about that. Sorry, again, like I said, I was gonna expound, because now, like Attorney Perrin, now I'm irritated too, although I was already irritated, but whatever. Sorry. And then the other thing that I want to mention, because again, my opinions on 3A are just known. It's a disgrace. It's, you know, Mr. Caruccio referenced it, Attorney Perrin referenced it, other people have referenced it, you know, Council President's referenced it. This is literally the state trying to come in and tell Winthrop what to do. This was cookie cutter zoning for one purpose, and don't let anyone tell you different. It's about the MBTA. It's about money, it's about developers, and it's about campaign donations. The town council, which again, I love that most of you have said, does not represent the United States of America, whether it's environmental or on housing or waterfronts or anything. You represent the town of Winthrop. So I beg some of you, who I know are teetering a little bit, please remember who you represent, and that's the town of Winthrop. Please. And the last thing I will say, and I did mention this at, Councilor DeMarco's meeting, which again, I will say again, I applaud you, Councilor DeMarco, for being the first person on the council to host that meeting to hear from your residents. Yes, you might not have the answers, but you had a discussion, and I truly thank you for doing that. The last thing is, I would, if someone could, I think it's maybe at the discretion of Council President, I would love to see under old business or new business, the old middle school site. We voted on this over a decade ago. I would love to see an update, even if it's, hey, we're still at the same place, but on our council agenda where we are with the middle school. Thank you for your time.
Yes, Bill.
Bill Schmidt, Precinct 5, also Chair of the Board of Health. First of all, regarding policy update, as you know, I've been before the board many times when we've done regulation. I'd be more than happy to come anytime the council wanted me to come to a meeting, or if one of the councilors wants to come to one of our meetings. Our next meeting is next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock in the Harvey Room. I want to talk a little bit about the history of 3A, because I think it's important to kind of realize where this came from. First of all, it's a poorly crafted bill. A bill that takes nothing into account the size of community makes absolutely no sense. Just because you're an adjacent community, you have to have 10%, whether you have 1.6 square miles or you had 50 square miles, it makes absolutely no sense. This bill was passed by Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito in the legislature at that time. Now, this, I believe, was passed in 2021, which I believe was right after Bob DeLeo left. And so we lost, and I think it was actually before Jeff might have got elected.
It was.
And it was also around the time that Senator Von Corey was in the process of leaving. So I think Winthrop, unfortunately, was not really represented at the table. But this was passed by the legislature, representing all these communities that are affected by this. So all these communities who are upset with this should be not just Winthrop, because there's 177 communities. I'm sure there's more than a half a dozen that are really disappointed in this. I think a coalition is a necessary step. But I would also say that, having worked in government at federal, state, county, local level, executive is responsible for carrying out the will of the legislature. So the fact that the current administration, all this was passed before the current administration took office, they have the responsibility, and actually they could be sued if they don't carry out the will of the legislature. So it's important to realize that. I think there's two ways to go about this. First of all, I think, I don't know where you guys all went to the MMA
meeting
presentation recently. I don't know where they are, but there must be a lot of communities that are fighting this.
Right.
I think there's two ways to approach this. One is to have legislation to amend this bill. Number one, you can extend it, change, make changes so that, density, various issues could be taken into account. The second issue is the courts. We operate under three branches of government, so you have a couple of ways of approaching it. I also would agree with Mr. Perrin, and I mentioned this to my good friend Councilor Munson about this. I agree that I wouldn't tell them that we were willing to compromise, and asked to put in a different level community, which that adjacent small town community is based on population, not how much land there is. So I think you need to approach it a couple different ways. But I also think that it's smart to reach out with an olive branch, but try to buy some time, but to work with other communities to try to get modifications to this law so that if it does happen, it makes sense. I understand where Governor Baker was coming from. We're told that we need 200,000 more units of housing in the state. So I understand, and the legislature went along with it. And these are all these legislators from the surrounding community, Democratic legislature, communities that passed this. So I think go to the other communities that are impacted by this and have them ask their state legislators where they are on this. I understand where Representative Turquoise, people know I'm close to Senator Edwards. She represents Boston, which isn't impacted by this law, it's exempt. So half of her district isn't affected by this. So you're probably not gonna have success with changing her opinion on this. But there are a lot of other legislators, right, and from representing different communities. That's the way to go. I would look for that approach.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for writing the letter and the work that you're doing, and I agree, if we could get, a vote sooner than later, I'll say like everybody else, say, let's do that, so we can figure out if we have to petition or not. I do think that the letter, the way you wrote it, is spot on, because I think if you sent a letter to the governor saying, we're not doing this, the governor would have to dig her heels in and say, yes, you are. So I don't think going with a hammer saying we're not complying is the right thing to do. So I applaud you in really crafting this really, really well.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry. I just want to.
Name and precinct again, just.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Holly Murphy,
Yes.
precinct 2. I just want to thank Mr. Calla and Mr. Marino for all the work that you've done with the flooding on Pico, Charleston, Banks, Girdlestone. And I just want to thank you all for your commitment to fix this problem. I know it's not easy, but I just want to thank you. It's very refreshing to hear you all on board. And thank you for what you're doing. And Brian, I just want to say you left out one thing one of your accomplishments, and I want to thank you for that, as protecting the town of Winthrop when you were a police officer.
I'm not angry anymore.
One quick point, I would add Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, because she's a former mayor of Salem, she understands local issues, she's the point person on cities and towns. And Ed Augustus is a former city manager for Worcester.
And she's all for it.
Yes. Sir. Name and
I was
precinct.
gonna ditto Colleen.
Just name and precinct
Oh,
again.
yeah, Brendan Cooney, 35 Pico Ave, Precinct 5. Just want to thank Councilor Aiello and Director Calla for the work they've done. My only thing is my 2-year-old missed the water show on Pico Ave the other day, so if you come back, run the firehouse. Friday night between 7 and 9, I'll go out to dinner, and please, thank you for everything. I wanted to stress the urgency, but after listening to everybody, I think that's well known, so thank you guys.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm just gonna give you my list.
Okay.
It'll be easier.
Thank you. Steve.
Steve Machinsky, Precinct 5. I just want to make sure, I thought I heard that you were going to publish this. I think after you get the signatures and stuff and after it's sent off.
We're going to call it, we will definitely electronically publish it within our website, but we are also going to call the transcript and see if we can.
Yeah, I'm just saying so that the rest of the town can know, because you only 30 people.
They don't all watch this meeting?
I don't know. And the real problem, as I'm engineer, is we're building housing, what you have to do is stop the people from coming in the state.
Good.
It's an exodus already.
A couple of points here. Policy making committee boards, I'd like to add on that it is great that it's gonna go on the agenda, but I still feel that all policy making boards should be included in Zoom. That way it's easier accessible at that time, because sometimes notes, as we know, when the information written down, depending on, who writes it down, John, is very elaborate, and then other times it's minimal, and it's hard to understand what the notes are. So having a Zoom recording of it would be hugely beneficial. Next topic would be that on this 3A, ties into it a little bit more, is that this summer, I believe 475 units are opening up at Suffolk Downs. Next 2 to 3 years, we've got another 10,000 opening up. So I feel maybe in numbers wise, kind of cramming that in that letter might have helped too, saying East Boston is coming up with how many right at Orient Heights?
But aren't they exempt?
Not East Boston, that's not part of this.
I get.
But the additional closing us off on both sides, I didn't really hear it tied into the letter. but, that's coming. So again, with the 3A, the opposing side of 3A that we don't hear about, I'll be happy to send you some links, the whole council of what I've been looking at. And it's pretty nice that Lincoln Institute has included opposing views, even though they are for, the zoning reform. At least there's people allowed to speak up against it and what happens. So I'll be happy to send those links to you if you'd like.
There were two, before we go back to people that have already been heard, there were two on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Just read those in, please.
Okay. All right, from Diana Beans. She's referring to Banks Morton Street flooding issues. Please be aware that the age-old, thrice denied, including by the Massachusetts Superior Court, 40R Banks development proposal, the development of the landlocked area between 12 homes, where one of the only, possibly only remaining treed sections in this continuously flooding and ecologically vulnerable marshland is going back before the planning board on February 12th. It would be helpful if the Conservation Committee or project team could weigh in on the impact of removing these vital trees in the midst of the natural disaster evaluation. This community is constantly underwater with 1 foot high at their very doors. She also suggests the town council work with the Conservation Committee along with the state, who has committed to invest in flooding mitigation of our coastal communities, to push for a full study of area, including an impact analysis of removing any of the very few remaining trees in Precinct 2, marsh side. Once these trees, public or private, are gone, the damage is done. There is no going back. Okay. Brian Beans. Okay. UTAL model that was presented to us during the meeting went far beyond what would be required for Winthrop to be 3A compliant. It included almost 3 times as many units as a minimum requirement and almost 10 times the minimum area. It didn't even attempt to examine whether we could meet our requirements by including existing buildings in town. It deliberately left out almost all the densest residential areas in Winthrop, which may in fact demonstrate that Winthrop is already in or near compliance. We need to study what the various options we have to meet compliancy with the least potential changes to the town zoning. This should have been done by our consultant, but instead the radical rezoning proposal was presented to the public as our only option. That's it. Brian.
Yeah, Tom Darian, Precinct 3. I just want to congratulate the council for your letter. It exhibits some appropriateness, some wisdom, some willingness to negotiate and compromise. And it's a lesson that perhaps could be learned in Washington.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if you would answer it. Can I ask a question?
You could, it's comment period, you can
What
ask.
is the calling market precinct 2? What's the, how do you determine the population? Is that by the census that we complete?
Yes.
So when you say 19,000 live in Winthrop, is that the?
I think it's slightly
kinda
over
like
that.
So if people don't return the census, we don't have an accurate number, correct? We could
Correct.
have 2 more thousand people living here, right?
Yes, so, yeah.
It's every community.
Huh?
Yeah, the same everywhere, yes.
No, I know, okay, all right, thank you. You educated me, thank you.
This was not done on, this was done on units. This is done on, from the 2020 census, there was 8,800 units identified in Winthrop. 10% of 8,800 is roughly 880. So that's where that number came from. Okay. Public relations. Board members are still needed for a couple boards. We encourage you to contact the town clerk's office. I will just state like a fun fact, because I like fun facts, and I'm old now, and I think almost everybody in this room can appreciate this, but it's 46 years ago today from the blizzard of '78, and we all have crazy memories from that. I was a senior in high school, and it was a fun time, but it is crazy how quickly time goes by, and stuff that was the most important thing in the world is not so much anymore, and there are other things that take precedence, so I encourage you to all think of that. Councilor Tassinari, anything to add for tonight, public relations wise?
No, did you?
Okay.
No.
Making
I
sure
think we
you
should,
are.
we should definitely include Lieutenant Governor in our, as an addressee, yes. And if and anyone else who's willing to listen.
Counselor Munson.
I wanted to say thank you to the town for being so, like, reliably active when needed. And I think that this is a situation where it's a game changer. This is a big, big deal. And I do also want to give you a sense of confidence, me personally, and speaking on behalf of the rest of the council. I would say we're all smart, reasonable people, and we would never, I mean, I'll speak for myself on this, we would never jeopardize Winthrop's long-term success and viability by saying yes to something that we don't even know all the facts to. As far as I'm concerned, you're not a responsible adult unless you know most of the facts. And then you definitely say no when you need to say no, not just because there's someone pressuring you. So I just want you guys to have confidence. There's a very good chance there's a big no coming soon.
That was a political thing. So is that a no or a yes?
Oh, and then we're also having a Valentine's Day thing on February 10th. That's PR.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. CAPEX Free Vita Tax Prep Program is starting, or it started February 2nd. It's Fridays, 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 100 Everett Avenue, Unit 14 in Chelsea.
Counselor DeMarco.
Before I start, will somebody please have a cup of coffee from the box of Joe I brought in? He's not gonna let me expense it out of the town council reserves, trust me.
You can use that money for.
I gotta give two shout outs, one in a very positive situation, one in a very not so positive situation. First off, getting back into the international night, not only the people who put it together, but also a huge shout out to Superintendent Lisa Howard. Absolutely.
Anita Preble.
And Anita, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing job all around. So that's the positive one. The negative situation where I have absolutely have to give, we all need to give a huge shout out to Chief Wiley.
Yes.
I mean, the situation, everybody knows unfortunately that we lost a 2-year-old girl. But our first responders and Chief Wiley responded heroically. And just the fact that from the call, not to getting there, but from the call to the emergency room, 23 minutes in those conditions is absolutely amazing. And my heart is with him and the first responders, and we're lucky to have him.
I agree. Counselor Aiello.
Other than seconding what he just said about Chief Wiley, which is important, and an example of what all of our employees do and how committed they are to the town. Just an amazing performance by him and the team. So.
Counselor Swope.
Well, my holdover from being on the school committee is that I went to see Nemo, Finding Nemo. Anytime you all get a chance with grandchildren or anything to go to the plays, we have a wonderful theater drama department. It's really terrific. And so I spent my time hearing Nemo's songs in the background for a while, and the play was terrific. But this was a junior high play. The senior high plays the high school plays are terrific too. So we're lucky to have such a great department.
Counselor Durst.
Two very quick things. First of all, on 3A, just a reminder, as I said earlier, Councilor Belcher and I are hosting a listening session about 3A right here in this room 2 weeks from tomorrow, Wednesday the 21st, and that's at 7 o'clock. It's designed primarily for residents of Precinct 6 and 3, however, anyone is welcome to come. So look forward to having that. And if I may, Council President, end on a fun fact note. Since it is Black History Month, happy Black History Month, everyone. Augustus Jackson, a black man from Philadelphia, invented a unique ice cream manufacturing technique in 1837. Augustus was a man on a mission to sell ice cream to ice cream parlors around the city. His idea of taking out the eggs and adding salt, cream, and flavor made him a popular man. Augustus packaged his ice cream in metal tins, keeping them cold during shipping, and his ice cream sold for up to $1 per quart. Thanks to this technique, ice cream was no longer just for the rich, as his lower production costs made Philadelphia-style ice cream more affordable to everyone. Still, Augustus's journey to success was not without struggle. He shared his technique with 5 other local black ice cream parlor owners who found success with the technique, but racial prejudice of the 19th century drove them all out of business. Augustus died in 1852 at the age of 43. His daughter took over the ice cream business, but at the time other companies were using similar creation and shipping methods and took over the Philadelphia market. There is no record that Augustus had a patent on his ideas, allowing others to use his methods. So next time you have a yummy ice cream treat, think of Augustus Jackson.
All right, there's a motion by Vice President Belcher for adjournment. There's a second by Councilor Swope. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.